Before we get into the SQE framework, we have to go over some fundamentals and the foundations of effective question asking. This is going to be quick and everything is really simple, but it's all the things that I wish that somebody had explicitly said to me. And it's so simple that you listening to this right now, you're going to be like, oh yeah, no duh. But having it explicitly said to you is also what might make you say no duh. You're like, yeah, I know that, but you never really connected the dots yourself because I didn't before I knew all this stuff. This is going to be really simple, but we have to go through it so that all of us are on the same page before we go into the framework. The first thing and the most important is understanding the purpose of your question. Like, why are you questioning? That's the most basic of it all. Do you want to clarify information? Like, is there something that you don't understand or that you need to understand in order to understand the rest of the story, in order to understand the rest of the project? You need some sort of clarity on something. You need this person to tell you more. Is it to just generate discussion? Is it just to get more ideas flowing and just be like, hey, this is something that I think we should talk about. I don't know where it's going to go, but I think we should talk about it. Right? Or are we trying to solve problems? Are we trying to be like, hey, are you a good fit for this? Is this what we're doing to solve this problem? Those are the different types of purposes for questions. I'm sure there are more, but those are the things that I could think of, to clarify information, to generate discussion, to solve problems. Second thing is that there are two types of questions. There's open-ended questions and there's closed questions. Open-ended questions, they encourage detailed responses, exploration of a topic, while closed questions, like they typically just give short, specific answers, often just like yes, no. Open-ended question would be, what inspired you to pursue a career in this field? A closed question, did you study this field in college? What inspired you to pursue a career in this field? You can be like, well, my grandmother, you know what I mean? At first, it was the dinosaurs and blah, blah, blah. And then the closed question is, did you study this field in college? No, I didn't. Did you study this field in high school? No, I didn't. All right, we're done here. They both have their purpose. Generally speaking, open is better than closed, although closed questions serve their purpose when you're trying to get very specific information out of people. In today's lesson, I guess, in today's podcast, we're going to be talking mostly about open-ended questions, but I'll give you an example of when you'd want to use a closed question. And this is just one example. I'm sure you can think of an infinite amount of examples, but because we're going to be talking about open-ended questions, I'm going to close the loop on these closed questions. Did I mean to do that? I don't know. So closing the loop on closed questions, let's say you sell residential windows door to door. 99% of the time, you want to be talking directly to the homeowner because they're the decision maker. They're the person that's going to care and that cares about their windows. You want to be talking to the homeowner. You don't really want to talk to the kids, renters, the boyfriend, whatever. So a good opportunity for a closed question would be, as soon as you knock on the door, knock, 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 knock. Hey, are you the homeowner? And they would answer, no, I rent. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. Quick information exchange. Hey, are you the homeowner? Yeah, I just bought this house last year. Perfect. Got it. Now we're into our sales pitch. You've qualified them through a closed question. You let them just choose 1, 2. Okay, perfect. Done. So that is just an example of the purpose and why you would use a closed question, why the questions wouldn't just all be open. Then there's a couple more things before we get into the framework. This next one is really simple, but it is what has helped me ask good questions, great questions the most. It is listening. That seems super duper simple. Listening to them, having the context of the conversation, that is a superpower. And then if you can listen and you can pick up on everything that they're saying, then you can ask amazing questions and then amazing follow-up questions as well. There's really no tips to listening other than take notes. And if you're in a situation where notes are convenient or allowed or appropriate, then I would do it. Like say that you're in a job interview, that's a completely appropriate place to take notes. You just say, hey, I got to take notes, and you just take notes right there. Say if you're in a meeting for a project and you're like, hey, I got to take notes, like that's a super appropriate place. To be honest with you, I take notes everywhere. because I'm a terrible listener, actually. I know that I just said I'm a really great listener, but I'm only good because I use active listening and I write notes down. I have a terrible memory, I should say, but I listen really well. But the only reason I listen well is because I have a external memory, which is my notes. If I'm having a conversation, a social conversation with people, and I'm like, wait a minute, I want to remember this. And then I just say, oh, do you mind if I just pull up my phone and then I just tap on my notes real quick? Da, 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 da. Okay, sorry, moving on in the conversation. Or do you mind while you're speaking, if I just take some notes real quick? All of the times, people are like, oh, taking notes of what I'm saying? Wow, I'm so important. You are important. The only reason why you're speaking, I'm guessing, is so that I could listen and that you want me to hear what you're saying. But then also, I just also have like a terrible memory. That is why I'm taking notes as well. Out of all of everything with the questions, that is the number one thing that has helped me ask great questions. The last one is a finer point. It's almost like a pro tip. And it's probably the only place where jargon is acceptable. You want to use jargon when it's appropriate when you're asking questions. And it's a really good use for jargon. And I hate jargon actually, but I think this might be the only good use when you're asking questions. If you don't know what jargon is industry specific or context specific words that you use. Let's say that I was talking to a medic and then we were having a conversation like what that guy die of. And he's just like, oh, he died of an MI. Be like, oh, that sucks. And for everybody else, you'd be like, what the hell's an MI? Well, it's a myocardial infarction. And you could just say heart attack because that's what people say. What that tells you in there when using jargon in your questions in the SQE framework throughout it, what it can tell the person that you're asking the question to is it could tell you the level of knowledge that you have and how much you know what they are about to say. And then it also signals to them how they should respond. If you say, well, he had a heart attack, maybe that's a signal for you to just leave it at layman's terms, which is totally fine. We can communicate all day in layman's terms. That's fine. But if you say, oh, well, he had an MI, well, maybe you understand a little bit more. I can talk with a little bit more jargon. I don't have to use 7 different words when one word will do. Going back to the coding example as well. Oh, he coded. What's a code? Using jargon right there. Like, oh, I was working a code one day. This guy has dealt with that before. We're on the same page there. I think this is the only use case where jargon is like, okay, and it makes sense to use sparingly if necessary.